Domenico Veneziano comes to us from Venice, and that's why he's called Veneziano. It's Dominique from Venice. He moves from Venice to Florence, and it's often said that he combines Florentine and Venetian concerns or styles. Later on in the 16th century, we'll hear that people always think of the Florentines being interested in the rational construction of space, in disegno or drawing, linear art, study of anatomy, things like that. While the Venetians are interested in light and color. Now remember, that distinction is going on at the time that Vasari is writing. And we have that distinction of Florentine disegno, planned, emphasis on drawing and line, versus Venetian colore, where light and color are celebrated in the art. So it seems that that framework is one of the ways that Vasari is interpreting Veneziano. He goes so far as to say that Veneziano is painting in oil, but that's not true. However, he is right that he uses color in a beautiful manner. Even though it's temporary, it almost seems to glow. There's this wonderful play of the roses, the pinks, and the greens, and very, very soft shadows. That even the shadows seem to be filled with light. And we're not seeing those harsh lines around the figures that are very frequent in Florence with people like Lippi and Uccello. So these seem to be almost Venetian traits, the idea of colore, light and color. However, his style also fits beautifully within the Florentine ambience, which is where he's living. You see strong, monumental, solid forms derived from the influence of Masaccio. And the space is clearly articulated. And Domenico understands linear perspective. So you can see that in, for example, the floor tiles and how he's played with these steps leading up to the Virgin. The painting that we're looking at is probably the most famous painting by Domenico Veneziano. It's called the Saint Lucy Altarpiece. And it was created about 1445. It's now in the Uffizi gallery. But it originally was for a church in Florence dedicated to Saint Lucy, Santa Lucia. And this sometimes serves, particularly in survey courses, as this perfect example of what 15th century painting is all about as far as composition. I use it in my survey class as an example of symmetry. The space is clear, rational. It's created with perspective. It's created as though there are volumes. And of course, this is very clear with the architecture because we have this architectural structure with green painted groined vaults. And so the pink molding, and then the white columns with the rose capitals, and they of course are very symmetrical. You have three of them; they're identical. And also we look at the wall of the building, which seems to go back in space and has niches within it with the classical shell motif. And then up above it, as though the wall doesn't go all the way to the top of the arch, we're seeing an orchard or a garden. We're seeing the trees in the background. And this is conceived of in planar construction. You have the front area with the saints. And then, a little bit further back, the second row of saints. And then you have the steps going up to the Madonna. who is enthroned beneath the central groin vault in front of this conch-shelled niche. And you see there's a lot in Renaissance art. They come out of classical antiquity, these shells and the niches. In fact, we talk about the conch of the apse. The conch of the apse, the rounded area in an archway or niche behind the altar. So Mary could be seen as the heavenly altar, the Ara Coli, or the altar of God, the Ara Dei, with Christ, who is the Eucharistic host, as the sacrifice on her lap, on the altar. Now, as we go further back, we see more plains. And then we see the tops of the fruit trees. So it gives a kind of airy feeling with this blue contrasting with the pink archway. So we see the arches dividing the space in depth. We see them vertically dividing up the space. And of course, they encase the Madonna and Child and give her a particular place to sit. This type of image, where you see saints on either side of an enthroned Virgin and Child, has a particular name in Italian. They call it a sacra conversazione, or a sacred conversation. And this becomes an important iconographical theme in Renaissance art, where you have the Madonna and Child, usually enthroned, surrounded by saints. It's not a narrative. It's not like this is the nativity or the baptism or any of the stories in the Bible or in the legend. It is a heavenly scene. It's outside time. You have these different sacred personages who lived, at all different times in history. We've got, and we'll take a closer look at them. We've got Saint Francis of Assisi and John the Baptist, as well as the Virgin Mary and the Christ Child. Saint Zenobius, who is the bishop's saint, and then Lucy, who was martyred under the Emperor Diocletian. So what's going on? Why is it a sacred conversation? Well, you may not say they don't really look like they're conversing, but they're all there as intercessors. And so the saints can intercede for the faithful, for the worshiper, sort of put in a good word with God for me, or put in a good word with Mary, and then Mary will pass it on to Jesus. And of course, Jesus can't refuse his mother anything, can she? So let's take a little closer look at these four standing saints. Obviously, they fulfill their space beautifully. They look like they're solid. They look like they are volumetric. But the shadows are, for the most part, filled. Often they have a light within them. And the colors of the architecture get continued on, you may say, Lucy's garment. And John the Baptist has, instead of the rose, he has a stronger red in his garment. This is St. Francis, John the Baptist, Zenobius, and Lucy. Incidentally, if you're wondering why St. Francis is wearing gray rather than brown, his actual habit, which I saw under glass at San Francesco, is gray. The original habit was gray. When the rule became confirmed, I guess they decided on a brown habit. So it's perfectly all right for Francis to have either a gray or a brown habit. And the gray here, it's sort of silvery, and it goes with the silvery gray white of Zenobius's chasuble. It's not the chasuble, the alb. And the pinks and the greens, and everything just is beautifully harmonious. There we see the Virgin in the center. She holds the Christ Child. He's he may be a baby, but he can stand up because he's also the Savior. He's also the King of Kings. And so she displays him for our veneration. And you can see how the beautiful pale blues, and they wrap around her body, wrap around her knees, and really, give us this feeling of this very solid figure. Now, in the predella, there are scenes that refer to the saints who are represented. We have here an Annunciation referring to the Madonna. There is a miracle of Saint Zenobius for Saint Zenobius. Saint Francis receiving the stigmata. Saint John in the wilderness, not in that order, incidentally. So we'll look at a few of these. This is, as I said, it's in the predella. The predella is the little panel below the main altar. So these are smaller scenes. They lift up the panel. And here you see something that's beautifully architecturally articulated with very clear spaces. It may be small, but it feels monumental. And once again, you can see he certainly uses linear perspective with the grid lines, and the vanishing point is here within this doorway, and it is the porta clausa, the closed door, which is within the hortus conclusus, the enclosed garden. So both are symbols of Mary's virginity. The angel, he's kneeling. He's holding the lilies that are often considered to be symbols of Mary's virginity. Mary is a little, behind these columns. She's a little separated in her own little space. I think of a cloistered nun, although, of course, they wouldn't have openings between the columns. And once again, she's very humble, devout. She's crossed her arms on her breast, and you can just imagine her saying, "Behold, the handmaid of the Lord." The pale pink comes down into this scene where it's contrasted with the deeper blues of the angel's tunic and Mary's mantle. And here we see the stigmatization of St. Francis. Francis and Brother Leo is here observing. You might notice these rocky peaks that represent the hillside, and they almost remind you of the Byzantine mountains, but not quite. He's showing you what is it, very steep mountains, and the contrast of light and dark is sometimes gives it almost a feeling of a kind of cutout. And then the other side, we're seeing a street through a Tuscan city of the 15th century. The street perhaps is a bit wider than they would have been because we want to see the scene that is going on. But you can see the multi-story buildings and little porches out over the walkway. And here we see a mother, distraught, crying out. Her son has fallen, and can you see where the balustrade is broken? It's actually, of course, further back. Well, maybe that's not. Maybe that's not. Maybe that's just part of the house. But at any rate, her son has fallen, and you can see all the blood from his skull. He's dead or dying. And Saint Zenobius prays to God, and the child is healed and lives. We also see this remarkable little panel of St. John the Baptist in the wilderness. Now, John the Baptist standing among the saints in the Sacra Conversazione was an older figure. He has a beard. He's dressed in skins. He doesn't look anything like this figure It's almost as though, John was this beautiful, ideal, somewhat, of a classical nude. There's the influence of classical antiquity on Christian art. And even so far as to show John the Baptist in the nude. I don't think I've ever I don't know that there's any other instance of that except, of course, the infant John the Baptist. But here he is as a beautiful youth. And what he's doing, he's out there literally in the wilderness with these craggy peaks. They almost look like icebergs, except they've got maybe some warm hues as well as the cool ones in them. And he's taken off his garments, and he's replacing them with the skin that he wears as he goes out into the wilderness and mortifies the flesh. And then we see another little scene about the same size, which is the martyrdom of St. Lucy. They tried a lot of stuff with Lucy. They tried to drag her to a brothel using oxen to drag her, but she would not be moved. God kept her safe. And eventually, of course, I think they probably cut off her head. There is another part of her legend, however, that you might be interested in. She's a beautiful woman. People want to marry her, but she's promised her virginity to God because she's a Christian. And one of the suitors tells her that he loves her beautiful eyes, and so she takes them out and gives them to him, thinking, of course, that this will make her so unattractive and horrible that nobody will want to marry her, and then her virginity will be safe. It's said, however, that Christ, the Virgin, restored her eyes. But because of this removal of the eyes, her attribute is her eyes. Sometimes, as in this painting, she's holding them on a plate. So I'm seeing the executioner come up behind her, and I'm not sure if he's going to cut off her hair or cut out her eyes, but this is where he's going to cut off her head. And there, of course, up on the this sort of porch that sticks out is a tiny little Diocletian ordering her execution. This painting is in the National Gallery of Art, and I just wanted you to take another look at it because it is such a unique image of John the Baptist. And you can see how the modeling of the body is very, very soft. It's not hard-edged. Beautiful contrapposto. We still have a gold disc halo. In this case, it almost looks like, it's been so foreshortened, it almost looks like a flat disc on his head. And you also get the sense of light shining into this rocky wilderness landscape. So remember that as an example of the influence of classical antiquity in Christian art.